My colleagues and I have created a poster that looks at the implementation practices of Montessori teachers. And this was based on a dissertation I did a number of years back where I wanted to see what practices were teachers implementing in their classrooms. I used cluster analysis to group the teachers and found that a rather small percentage implemented practices that would be considered high fidelity. I called this group traditional, and that was only 18% of our sample. It was a small sample, 66 early childhood teachers. I interviewed them about their practices, and so there was this very kind of low number of your high fidelity classrooms based on these interviews. So my colleagues and I, Angela Murray and Chen, who Gia's videotaping us right now, so she's here, just not in front of she's behind the camera.
That's right.
So we've been working on another project, and we had a large data set that, actually I'm going to let you take over at this point.
Okay.
We replicated the study, and Angela's going to talk about the rest. I'm going to let you go ahead.
Great. So we looked at Montessori practices among teachers. We had a sample of 182 Montessori early childhood teachers who completed an online survey looking at their practices in 3 areas. We had questions related to the structure of the classroom and the program, the curriculum that they were implementing, as well as the freedom in the classroom. So we worked on a confirmatory factor analysis and then created scores for each one of those constructs to create the foundation for our k-means clustering analysis. So when we did that analysis, we identified 4 clusters, and those clusters are groups of teachers that are similar to one another in terms of their practices, but different from the other groups. And so the groups that we found, the cluster that is what we would consider probably the most similar to the one Carolyn found in her previous research is the classic cluster, and that represented 48% of our sample, and those teachers were high on all 3 constructs, both structure, curriculum, as well as freedom. The other clusters that we identified, there was one group that was this group in teal, is the group that we called modified, and that group was relatively higher on freedom but quite a bit lower on structure and curriculum items. The freedom-focused group was in the moderate range for structure and curriculum, as was the regulated group, but the freedom-focused group was much higher in the freedom category. The final cluster, the regulated group, was the group that really offered the least amount of freedom in the classroom. So these clusters really give us some insight and some context for understanding the types of practices that exist in Montessori classrooms, and it's work that is building up to giving us some tools as researchers to account for the variability in Montessori practices in classrooms. When we look at research related to Montessori education, we need to have variables that we can incorporate into our analyses that help us understand this variability in Montessori practices. So this is a step in that direction.